Imagine walking into your own backyard, only to find the HOA's self-proclaimed queen splashing around in your private pool, sipping drinks like she owned the place. Now imagine catching her on camera. Her skin and hair dyed a shocking shade of green from the prank you set up, while she screamed at the top of her lungs for the whole neighborhood to hear. Yeah, that happened to me. But before we get to that moment, let me tell you how it all began. When I first bought my house in Maplewood Estates, I thought I had found the perfect place to settle down. It was quiet, filled with neatly kept homes, and had a reputation for being one of the most desirable neighborhoods in town. The cherry on top was the backyard, a pristine swimming pool with clear blue water, surrounded by a tall privacy fence. It was my little escape, the place I'd envisioned hosting barbecues, cooling off on hot summer days, and simply relaxing after long work weeks. But there was one thing I hadn't counted on: Karen. Karen was the self-appointed queen of the HOA. She didn't just enforce rules, she invented them, waved them around like a badge of honor, and reminded everyone that she was protecting the neighborhood's values. She wore oversized sunglasses, carried a clipboard like it was glued to her hand, and strutted around like she owned every property in sight. Her favorite pastime? Sticking her nose into everyone's business. First, I brushed her off. I figured every community had at least one nosy neighbor, and as long as I kept my lawn trimmed and trash cans put away, I wouldn't have to deal with her much. But it wasn't long before I realized Karen had her sights set on me. It started small. Passive-aggressive notes about how my garden hose was visible from the street, or how my mailbox wasn't painted in the HOA-approved shade of beige. Then came the emails about noise complaints whenever I had friends over for a weekend barbecue. But the real problem began the day I caught her using my swimming pool. One Saturday morning, I woke up early, grabbed a coffee, and stepped out to enjoy the quiet. To my shock, I saw Karen lounging on one of my pool chairs like she owned the place, sipping something from a tumbler. She wasn't just trespassing. She was floating in my pool, completely relaxed, as if it were a community amenity. I was stunned. When I confronted her, she waved dismissively and said, "Oh, don't be silly. This neighborhood prides itself on sharing. Your pool adds to the community value. It's basically for everyone." I told her flat out that the pool was on my property, behind my fence, and that she had no right to use it. She scoffed, called me selfish, and muttered something about bringing it up at the next HOA meeting. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. After that first incident, I installed a new lock on the side gate that led into the backyard, but the very next week I came home from work and found wet towels and a half-empty can of soda by the pool. Karen had clearly been there again. I checked the lock and realized she must have climbed the fence. The audacity! I confronted her the next morning, and she didn't even deny it. Instead, she doubled down. "Pools are meant for everyone to enjoy. I'm just making sure it's not going to waste when you're not using it," she said with that smug, condescending tone. I reported her to the HOA board, but since she practically was the board, she had the president wrapped around her finger and controlled every meeting. They brushed it off. "It's just a misunderstanding," they told me. "Karen only has the community's best interests at heart." That's when things really spiraled. Karen began treating my pool like her personal club. I'd find her swimming laps in the early mornings, tanning on my deck chairs during the afternoons, and even hosting little get-togethers with her friends by the water. I kid you not, she brought guests into my backyard. The final straw came when I got home one Friday evening to find 3 women in pastel cardigans splashing in the shallow end while Karen grilled burgers on my barbecue. She had the nerve to wave at me like I was interrupting. I snapped. I yelled at her and her friends to get out immediately, and Karen threw a fit. She claimed she had community rights to the pool and threatened to fine me for restricting HOA members' access to shared amenities. Shared amenities? It was my property. I knew I had to do something. Karen wasn't going to stop, and the HOA wasn't going to help. That's when I decided if Karen wanted a war, I'd give her one. I spent the weekend thinking. Confrontation wasn't working. Reasoning with her was pointless. Reporting her got me nowhere, so I needed another approach, something clever. First, I installed security cameras in the backyard, making sure to cover every angle of the pool area. If Karen wanted to sneak in, I'd catch her on tape. But I didn't stop there. I wanted more than just evidence. I wanted to make sure her little pool adventures became so unbearable she'd never try it again. That's when the idea hit me. I remembered a prank from my college days: pool dye. There are special chemical packets you can drop into a pool that don't hurt the water, but when they mix with chlorine, they leave a colorful stain if someone swims in it. It's harmless, but it makes it very obvious who's been in the pool. I ordered a batch online and waited. A few days later, I saw my chance. I pretended to leave for work one morning, but parked my car around the corner and walked back home quietly. Sure enough, within half an hour, Karen was climbing my fence, bathing suit under her sundress, towel in hand. She tossed the towel on a chair and dove right in. I waited until she was fully enjoying herself before I activated the pool pump, letting the dye mix into the water. Within minutes, the crystal blue pool turned a vivid, unmistakable shade of bright green. And Karen? Her hair, skin, and swimsuit were all stained the same color. She screamed, climbed out, and looked down at herself in horror. Her white cover-up was ruined. Her blonde hair had a swampy tint, and the green streaks were impossible to hide. I stepped out onto the deck with my phone recording. "Smile for the camera, Karen," I said. "Looks like the community pool doesn't agree with you." She exploded, shouting that I'd assaulted her, that she was going to sue me, that the HOA would have my house on the market by next week. But all I did was keep recording, calmly pointing out that she was trespassing and caught red-handed. Literally. She stormed off, dripping and fuming, muttering about calling her lawyer. But the damage was done. I had video proof, and Karen had been humiliated in the most public way possible. I uploaded the footage to a private neighborhood forum, not out of pettiness, but because I wanted everyone to see the truth. I titled the post, "This is what happens when the HOA queen thinks my private pool is hers." The response was immediate. Neighbors who had been quietly suffering under Karen's reign finally spoke up. Turns out she'd been helping herself to people's gardens, mailboxes, and even someone's garage freezer. My video was the spark that lit the fire. By the next HOA meeting, the entire community was buzzing. Karen tried to defend herself, claiming I had set her up, but no one was buying it. The green-stained hair, the security footage, the sheer gall, it was all too much. One by one, neighbors voiced their frustrations, and the tide turned against her. In a shocking twist, the board voted her out as HOA president. For the first time in years, Karen lost her power. She tried to fight it, of course, threatening lawsuits and ranting about ungrateful neighbors, but with the whole community against her, she didn't stand a chance. As for me, my pool has been blissfully Karen-free ever since. I finally got to enjoy it the way I intended, hosting barbecues, relaxing after work, and even inviting over some of the neighbors who supported me. Every now and then, I'll see Karen walking by on the sidewalk, glaring at me with that same smug look she used to wear. But now there's no clipboard, no authority, just bitterness. And I can't help but smile, knowing that I stood up to her and won. In the end, all it took was a little creativity, a splash of green dye, and the determination not to let a power-hungry HOA Karen trample over my rights. Because sometimes the best revenge is giving someone exactly what they asked for, just not in the way they expected.